One of the jokes I always, have fun with my guys. I said, you've heard kids go in the front of the class telling everyone that they want to be a fire engine driver, a train driver, a truck driver, right? Well, that's closest to what you're going to hear to logistics. Oh. No one's going to stand in front and say, well, I want to be a freight forwarder.
No, look, you're spot on.
G'day. Welcome to TGL's newest segment, Back and Forth. If you haven't guessed or you can't see already, which you probably can't if you listen to this on podcast, we're sitting at a ping pong table. We're here for a candid conversation with logistics industry experts and people. And our first guest here today is Paul Zalai. I got that right?
You have.
Beautiful. Well, one take. Paul Zalai from Freight and Trade Alliance, or FTA, and taking charge of the conversation, a face you've probably seen if you've looked at our YouTube channel, Chang, CEO and founder of TGL. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. You were here anyway because you work here, so which is fine. But Paul, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, not a problem.
Would you mind giving us a little bit of career background, where you came from and to where you are now, and then maybe talk about FTA and what FTA does for the logistics industry?
Yeah, so my background, I stumbled into the industry basically, like so many other people did. I applied for a job with a freight forwarding company that doesn't exist today, but you might remember John Fletcher International. Yeah. They used to drive around in the little green vans, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool job. I'll do that. So I applied for it, got it, and I was a runner for probably about 6 months before I even realised what the company was I was actually working for. But, physically delivering documents, going to customs and the like. Once I understood a bit about what the industry was all about, I thought, well, I'll study to become a customs broker. These guys seem to be making good money. I wouldn't mind being one of them. So this is back in the early 1980s. So I went to Sydney TAFE College back then, and I still got a lot of friends in the industry from back then. Then went on, worked for another small freight forwarding company, SCD Freight, which also doesn't exist today, but they were mainly in the rag trade around Surrey Hills and the like. And then, first of many bright ideas, I thought, well, I'll see what life is like on the other side of the fence. And I joined Customs in 1986. Thinking I'll do that for a year or two and then get a bit of experience and then come back out in the industry. But I ended up actually really enjoying it. Did a secondment from there to the Federal Police for a while, and then took a liking to the IT systems. And again, as I was saying before earlier, I'm not an IT guy, but I understood how the old, now legacy systems work, the old compile, edifice, exit, air and sea cargo automation. Yes. And to the point where I actually ended up running the help desk for those systems. I ended up then moving to Canberra and had a policy role down there. And then I thought I was probably going to end up being a career public servant until an opportunity came up. There was talk about the introduction of a new computer system, the ICS, and integrated cargo system. And the government was looking for an industry representative to represent industry back to government. So I applied for that, and then after the second interview, I went home to my wife and went, I think I'm actually going to get this. What are we going to do? So I actually left Customs then, took a contracted role to represent industry back to government, was quite outspoken because I could see the ICS implementation was heading towards a bad introduction.
And that was a painful period for the industry.
It was a very painful period. And after it was actually implemented, I actually got a phone call at home, and the gentleman said, "It's Godwin Gretsch here from Prime Minister and Cabinet Department. I understand you're an ex-customs officer and you're a troublemaker." And I said, well, you're half right. I'm an ex-customs officer. But long story short, he flew me down to Canberra the next day, met with Prime Minister and Cabinet, and he was looking, how do we get this out of the newspapers? Yeah. And I said, we basically have to fix the problem. A couple of weeks later, and you and all your listeners who were involved at the time would remember the pain, but there was the minister at the time for Customs was Chris Ellison. He called a crisis meeting, and to my surprise, he said that they're going to have an industry action group to look at the remedial action. It was going to be co-chaired by Paul Zalai from industry and Phil Burns from Customs. Now, Phil and I didn't always see eye to eye, and we sort of looked at each other across the table thinking, how's this going to work? But I think probably to both of our credit, we made it work.
Yeah.
And over time, the system became a bit more workable.
Yes.
From there, I worked in industry association roles. And then 10 years ago, my wife and I took 3 months trip around Australia, tried to discover the meaning of life, thought, well, what do we want to do now?
Yep.
Do I want to go back in work in freight forwarding? And
That's
all due
right.
respect, Lara,
Yes.
that didn't really appeal to me. Do I want to go back work in government? I'd been there and done that.
Yes.
Do I start a lawn mowing run? Probably would have been good after all this rain. And then we thought, well, what we do best is really this advocacy
That's right.
work. So we thought, well, let's give it a go. Let's create our own entity of an advocacy body. And then we were looking for a name. What's it going to be called? So then we said, look, FTAs are going to be the thing of the future, free trade agreements.
Yeah.
I said, the business has got to be called FTA.
Yeah.
Now, what does FTA stand for?
Yeah.
So we worked backwards with the acronym.
Right.
And then we were originally talking Freight and Trade Australia. And then we thought, no, we're trying to bring together all these diverse stakeholders. Let's go for Freight and Trade Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And so wind the clock forward 10 years, and we've gone from strength to strength with no backing, just a lot of hard work from ourselves.
Yep.
We've got a fantastic team now.
Yep.
And, we represent over 450 corporate businesses, including TGL.
Yep.
But a lot of freight forwarding companies, some major importers.
Yep.
And then the other big change for us too was from the 1st of January 2017,
Yep.
we also took on the secretariat role for another group, the Australian Peak Shippers Association, or
Right.
APSA.
Right.
And that was a big turning point for us because they're big exporters. So
Yes.
between that group, they export about 600,000 TU
Yes.
of exports a year.
Yes.
So when we were going to Canberra with our advocacy work, with all due respect again to forwarders and even importers, we got a lot more traction when we said we're representing also Australian exporters.
Yes.
And it was like, well, welcome, gentlemen. How can we help you?
Yes.
So that's a bit of the background.
Well, I think your FTA, the fact that it's called an alliance, it's aptly named, because for too long the industry, the freight industry and the trade has not really been seen as an alliance. Well, especially by the people that we serve. So I think the name is spot on. So allow me to personally welcome you again, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
This is our inaugural show. And I was saying to the guys when we secured your participation, it was like, God, we've punched a bit high. I go, how are we going to get of the higher caliber guests after we've had Paul? So hopefully, we haven't shot out of the gate too, too quickly and too high. So the reason why I was very high to wanting you to be on the show, Paul, is exactly what you just said. Remember, it was 3 years ago when you started your business, which we were then a much smaller company, and we were a member for I think one year. And then later on, we dropped out purely because I guess at the time, didn't really see what it was happening.
Is this a confession session?
It was a confession session. You do look like, the good father. And we dropped out because, at the time, I haven't seen any of the advocacy work that you'd been doing. And for us, there was a lot of self-interest, obviously, of survival and all that sort of stuff. So resources was tight and what have you. But over the years, I kept, watching your progress and your advocacy, and you've been loud. You've been very, very loud, and you've been fantastic. And it's been something that's very close to my heart. And one of my biggest qualms with the industry is we might have a few bodies, but none of them are loud. None of them have created the voice that this industry needs. When you're talking to different ministers and you're lobbying people and so forth, and just to follow that is something I think is fundamental to any robust industry. So because of that, I commented on a few of your posts on LinkedIn, and that's when we re-engaged with yourself and became a member again to highly support your efforts. So again, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Definitely welcome, and thank you for being our very first important guest. earlier on we were sitting down, we were talking, that I can feel that this is your favorite subject. Like
Yeah.
this is my favorite subject
Yeah.
as well. So we can literally talk until the cows come home, but we should try not to.
Yeah, sure.
So overall, I think, like you said something in your introduction, Paul, which struck a chord with me, and I think it will struck a chord with all logistics people listening or watching this. And that is, we stumbled into this industry, right? I would dare say over 90% of us in this industry, we've stumbled upon it. And, you've been in the industry for a lot longer than I have. I found this job when was looking at the newspaper. I think it was the Sydney Morning Herald in the back pages when you used to have to apply for a job. And it was promises for international travel.
Okay.
And it was an ad about this big.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. And turned out it was Fritz Flyway at the time.
Yeah.
And I was 21 coming out of university, and I was a salesperson or sales trainee role. Still didn't know what it was. And, just like you said, 6 months into it, still didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I think that has been the recurring trend that I personally experience, and also speaking to folks such as yourself, continue to hear. And I feel that because of that, this is why our industry haven't been as robust as required, because we don't have really what you call a motivated workforce.
Yeah.
If you're stumbled into something, you're not really motivated to do better.
No.
And the world's moved on. The requirements from the other side, the customer we serve, they've gone, more advancing their requirements. And our industry have always somewhat lagged behind it, always trying to play catch up. And it's not because we don't want to, it's again, going back to the workforce. And my personal views is that, without advocacy, which is you're doing, without promoting the industry, without any self-interest, but literally just promoting the industry, we're not going to improve the talent pool.
Yeah.
Right? We were at a supply chain awards last week in Melbourne, and it was really good to hear, about the folks that was at that table. There was a lot of industry captains in that room, and it was good to just hear that slowly they come and say that we need to, educate a bit more, improve the education. And there was also a representative from TAFE, I recall, from New South Wales, that was there as well, which is great. But for me, I think we need to go a little bit deeper, or rather a little bit earlier. Instead of going TAFE and university, we should be going to the high schools.
No, I agree.
And dare I say it, primary schools. Because, one of the jokes I always, have fun with my guys, I said, you've heard kids go in the front of the class telling everyone that they want to be a fire engine driver, a train driver, a truck driver, right? Well, that's closest to what you're going to hear to logistics.
Oh.
No one's going to stand in front and say, well, I want to be a freight forwarder.
No, look, you're spot on. It's really, it's an unknown industry, really. And look, as terrible as the last couple of years have been with the pandemic and the supply chain issues, probably the only good thing about it is it's put us on the map to a degree. Yeah. We've had a lot of media coverage over the supply chain issues, and things that people take for granted. They're now thinking, well, how do things get onto our shelves?
Exactly.
And how do things come in and out of the country? And to be honest, it's a miracle that it does. But it's really only achieved just because of the professionals like yourselves and others in the industry. What you do to navigate through these crazy processes that we've still got, whether it's, moving containers off the wharf through to, even dealing with our regulatory agencies, it's bloody hard work. And it is a real professional service that makes it all happen. It's a big challenge to try and translate that into getting kids to want to be in this industry. But it's something I think I agree. It needs to get started at high school. And that's something that we're actually talking to a couple of different entities about, some possibilities of going down that path, but not easy to do it without some significant funding as well. But you're right. And the other challenges at the moment, which we're hearing from a lot of our members, and you hear about the great resignation, a lot of people, unfortunately, are resigning from the industry because it is hard. And it's harder now than what it ever has been, trying to get space on vessels, trying to explain why you can't. at times to your customers. And it's a really, really tough job that you've got. And some people are just thinking, why am I putting myself through it?
Yeah.
So we've got to continually innovate, and we've got to make it a more attractive and a better place to work.
Absolutely. And I think, you hit the nail on the head in terms of, what goes on moving a container from A to B. You're dealing with a lot of people. And one of the hardest things in any company or any industry, the biggest challenge is dealing with people. And with supply chain, so many sets of hands, and there may be so many things that can go wrong. So for the operator there pulling the lever, it takes a lot of hard work. But how we have sold our service as an industry, we have failed the very people who's servicing it because they're not treated as a professional. Right? The messaging hasn't been strong enough to say we are a profession. We've commoditized every single segment. I recall back in the days when you were a customs broker, rightly so, that was a prestigious role. You were getting paid, back in the days by the customer, a lot more money to clear a shipment than it is today. The constant downward pressure, and I dare I say, I don't want to be bashing any sector, but, by the multinationals, they bastardized the entire service as it is customs clearance, right? Because they rolled it in, and it's like, do you want fries with it, as opposed to this is a fundamental important part of import-export,
Look, Lara, you've really... We're on the same page with this, for sure. One of my real frustrations, and we're still working really hard, it's to try and increase that perception of the professionalism of the sector as well. Because, like you said, it is such a competitive environment that pricing... And I don't want the ACCC to see this and think that I'm trying to collude to get prices up.
This is a casual chat, guys, a casual chat.
But the sector needs to be able to provide a professional service fee for a professional service. So long, the whole sector, and that's including a lot of our members as well, they're making a buck, but they're making it out of surcharges and other add-ons, not out of a professional service fee. As you said, to try and lift a customs broker fee beyond a certain amount almost, gets scrutiny. But if you can get that same amount through some artificial surcharge, somehow it seems to be accepted. And, we've got a situation now with the stevedores, where they implement these terminal access charges. And you can see from ACCC reports, they're charging less to the shipping line and they're making up that revenue by putting a terminal access charge on the transport operator. And you look at their net result, they're not really profiteering out of it. They're just making money off a third party through a surcharge that the payer has no influence over the service or price. And then that gets passed down and cascades through the supply chain. To me... And one of the things we're advocating for is we say, look, the stevedores, like everyone else, needs to be profitable. But enforce them to charge their commercial client, the shipping line. If the shipping line then can't absorb those costs, then they pass it on in negotiations with the freight forwarder, the importer, the exporter. But as it is now, everyone's making a buck, but not through the right channels. And we're seeing it now with LCL depots as well and others. It's I don't know how we can turn that around, but it'd be... In a perfect world, we'd be in an environment where everyone would be comfortable to charge a professional service fee to their commercial client, and that would be, seen as being acceptable.
Well, I see this as a systemic issue of generally the industry being very short-sighted, right? We are our own worst enemy, right? Like, let's go back to the clearance subject, right? Whatever it is, $100, $150, right? And the border force now needs to go... enforce compliance. Things are just not done like how it's used to be. Well, no wonder. When you can't compensate the broker to do a proper job, and you're literally charging peanuts, what kind of work do you actually really stick in return? Now, if the brokers, if they were able to get more revenue for that profession, or be recognised as such and be rewarded as such, I can assure you there'll be a lot less compliance issues. That's saving the Australian Border Force dramas as well. So like anything, if you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys.
Well, you take that to the other extreme. I would say the level of compliance on imports is still pretty good. With the professionalism that we've got with the broker community in general is is very impressive, especially when you compare it to other parts of the world.
Right.
Where it's lacking is on exports.
Right.
Now, again, export declarations are thrown in quite often for free or very little charge for it, and the quality of the work there reflects that fee.
Right.
Now, you start talking about potentially things that have been talked about, the World Customs Organisation, of one country's export data could be another country's import data.
Yes.
Well, if I was another country, I wouldn't want to rely on Australia's export data.
Why do you think that is?
Well, again, it's the lack of compliance by the government agencies over time. They've never really focused on export declarations. And because of that, I think the industry gets sloppy and it goes down to the lowest common denominator.
Right.
Now, even if the Australian Border Force or the government wanted to turn that around, they couldn't do it overnight.
Yeah.
It would need a focus of time to allow enough people to get trained to the level of, say, a customs broker on imports to be able to do the export work. And we couldn't do that overnight, even if we tried.
Yeah.
But it's, again, something that probably should happen and should happen, or start the plan now and make it happen in the years to come.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, again, this is being just having the foresight and just having that planning process. And I keep on saying this, our industry has been very poor because there's a lot of us, right? And I always say to my folks during the training sessions is that the only reason why within any industry there's a lot of competitors, it's because there's no one in it that's really doing a great job. Because if you've got someone who's in an industry who's doing a great job, that will be keeping the competition away. For example, when Apple first launched the iPhone, for many years, nobody can come close. Yeah. But if you look at the freight industry, freight forwarding, just freight forwarding, which is a small sector in the entire logistics and which is part of the wider supply chain, there's 1,000 of us in New South Wales alone. So, yes, we all know the big guys and we all know their names, but then there are just so many of us. So we ask, well, no one's really doing that good of a job where there's room for all these competitors. Yeah. Sure, there's a lot of fly-by-nights and what have you, but the principle remains true. So there needs to be some form of, I guess, again, what you do through your advocacy, through your representing the industry, start from the younger talent to create that robust, tighter group of professionals so that we can keep away the riffraffs that ultimately strips away at the very essence what it is to be a freight guy.
Yeah, look, we talked about it earlier, that like we used to have the situation where your apprenticeship into the industry would be like what I said, what happened to me. You'd be a runner. Yeah. You'd just be purely handling, but even handling the documents, you became familiar with them and there was a succession plan. And then if you had a bit of nous about you, you would become a compiler and start assisting the licensed broker. And there was a succession plan.
Yes.
We've lost a lot of that. So again, technology sort of has worked against us there because we've got electronic delivery orders and all the rest of it. And then a lot of the data entry type work that was a part of that apprenticeship is now either being done offshore or even being done by bots. And I don't really understand how they work, but somehow they can automate that function. Yeah. So even the offshoring is now becoming redundant to a large degree with the likes of technology that's overtaken that. All great, all creates efficiency, means you can do the work at a lower price, but we have lost that traditional layer. What we need to do now is sort of reinvent, and what's the new apprenticeships going forward? And it'd be even interesting, like even from your business operations, like how you've been able to manage that.
Again, then we are going to chase this rabbit all the way into the hole. Yeah, and we're going to be here for weeks, Paul, because this is exactly what I think about on it every day. Maybe an anecdotal story here is this. Prior to COVID, we've always, since 2015, we've always ran an internship program, both for local uni students and for overseas uni students. There were agencies that basically, in fact, overseas tertiary education level, for them to get their degrees, whatever, they must go overseas for a certain period of time and do an internship in a real world industry, in a real world job, and for 6 months. So we always had spots available for these interns from overseas. So we have folks from Germany, from Netherlands, from France, you name them, we've had them. And they're just a different ball game altogether. You know, the quality of the people that's coming through. So what we have here is we have what's called an intensive training program for all of our operations people, as our industry will know it.
Okay.
But we don't have a customer service or operations department. They're combined as one. So these folks are not assigned tasks, they're assigned customers. But we teach them all of the building blocks for them to be able to do that. Did you want to have a guess what was the quickest that we were able to cram the entire freight forwarding process from talking to the customer, getting the order, getting the job booked, moved, clear the shipment and delivered? The entire process, what was the quickest time frame we got someone to pick that up?
Don't know. You tell me.
2 weeks.
Yeah, very good.
2 weeks. And his name was Paul Bodenberg. If he's watching or listening, he was a young German guy. He literally just finished high school. He hasn't even started university yet. And he already had the foresight to come overseas to take an internship. And I asked him, why are you doing it? He goes, well, that's what I want to do. But secondly, he was already poached by one of the big pharmaceutical companies. The education program in Germany is that these industries, like the farmers, the big pharma, they will go to high schools and look at all the top performers, and literally they will sponsor that person's tertiary education with the career path built into their business. That's how they find their future talent. And after hearing that story, I'm just sitting back going, geez, where do we start? How do we start it? Right? And it took this guy literally 2 weeks, which I can assure you, Paul, I've met people in the industry through my days that has been in it for 10 years, wouldn't have done all what he has done in 2 weeks. This is the disparity, and this is the issue. So you are right. You can't touch the documents anymore. You can't do the runners anymore because the technology is taken over. Well, we know that, and this is going to be the future. In fact, freight forwarding in 10 years' time will not be freight forwarding what it is today. It will be a lot of automation. It will be, AI, analytics, big data, blockchain. That is going to be the future of our industry. So a lot of the current tasks that we have in terms of employing, when we employ an operations person or a cartage person, they'll be non-existent anymore, right? So you have automated trucks. They're going to do automated ships. They've got the automated terminals already operating out of China and even Barcelona. The whole terminal is all automated. Soon everything is going to be systems talking to systems. So the industry as a freight forwarder, which is traditionally right now, even you look at it, my company right now, we are pushing forward with tech. But right now, if you look at it today, at this moment, we are still essentially glorified data entry people here. Right? That's what they're doing. So we're trying to automate all that out. So in time, what we're going to have, folks here will need to pivot into essentially become system resellers. Not system resellers in some way, but more so as guiding the users, our customers on how to leverage our system or how to use the system. And then to be essentially the full control tower, looking at the system and do exception management. But even then, given enough time, AI will take over that. So it is a bleak picture, but that side of conversation, that's going to happen to any industry, not just unique to our industry. For us, it has to be tech. And over and above developing tech, it has to be slowly getting the mentality of our people to switch from what they're doing into the tech world. And that it means simply including them in any of the tech development conversations so that the people at the front line understands. Because you can't go and, you keep on doing what you're doing, let us develop a system, and then somehow at the end of it, we're going to come together and everybody's going to get it. Good luck. It's not going to happen. So what we have here is we have a collaborative experience between our folks on the front lines and our tech folks and the leadership. Then we all come together and make sure it's a collaborative experience so that we actually understand what the hell we're creating and making sure it's always in touch with what we are creating for our customers and how we save our time in the back office on the back end.
So I've got a question for you. That's, I suppose, the picture you painted there creates, I suppose, threats and opportunities.
Yes.
just say we do get to the stage where, you can get the AI and you can get a whole lot of automation and all the rest of it. Do you see the role of a freight forwarder into the future, or do you see, because the one thing you don't have is the ships or the aircraft. Now, the shipping lines and the airlines can buy all that technology that you've said. Where do you see the freight forwarder role?
You're asking great questions, Paul. Well, the thing is, you see, it is my personal opinion from the years I've been as a freight forwarder, the truest essence of a freight forwarder, according to Chang's dictionary, is one who knows how to leverage assets, be it your own or external. The shipping lines got the ships. They've tried to dabble in freight forwarding. They've failed miserably over the years. They tried to offer the trucking service in Australia a few times now, where they want to include the trucking end. But they don't capture the fact that there is de-hire. They don't capture that there is something's going to go wrong, right? They just think it's just going to happen smoothly. That's in the utopian world, which is unrealistic. So the freight forwarder's value has always been who is best right now in any part of what we do. And then we leverage on that. That is the legwork of the freight forwarder. And that is what I feel is the essence of a freight forwarder. You shouldn't need to have one warehouse or two warehouses or 10 warehouses. Someone always said to me, I recall many years, because I've always believed a non-asset model in terms of when it comes to freight forwarding or logistics, right? My background, C.H. Robinson, they're the largest non-asset-based freight forwarder in the world. And that is like, what some guy will say to me, oh, but you guys don't have your own warehouse. You guys don't have your own truck. And I say, okay, well, if I got 10 trucks, what type of forwarder does that make me? Compared to the guy with the one truck and 100 truck, how long's a piece of string? Where do we draw the line? You know what I mean? Like, there's enough supply out there when it comes to these fixed assets. So the freight forwarder role right now has always been leveraging the best out there, because our customer relies on us for the best out there. Otherwise, they can go direct to the shipping lines. They can go direct to the truckers, right? So why we exist continues to be the freight forwarder needs to know within the industry who is the best relevant to the customer you're serving. That is today. Tomorrow is a lot more interesting outlook. It's like the work that we're currently doing will no longer exist. If you look at the true essence of logistics from a military sense, it's about going to places without an established point or distribution channel. You literally got to recreate that distribution channel to make sure it's the most efficient so you can get the supply to the frontline troops. Modern day logistics guy, you can have a lot of guys come and go, I'm a logistics professional. Well, yes, you are right in the current sense, but all the ports you're dealing out of, it's already established. Like for, say, Shanghai, Sydney, it's still going to be Shanghai, Sydney. You know all the shipping lines, there's 5 shipping lines. What value are you bringing to the picture? So compared to the old world logistics to logistics now, it's everything's discovered. There's no more value for that logistics professional anymore, because anybody can go and do that. So of course there are subtle nuances now with this COVID disruptions. So you've got to know, keep your ears on the ground. Okay, how are you going to get that space from there, and how to get that extra dollar saving there. But that we're really talking peanuts here. It strips away at the core of what it is to be a logistics professional. So that has to shift. And what that will shift means that it will come with tech. It will come with tech. Ultimately, we need to really become objective about what it is that we're trying to achieve here as a freight forwarder. Yes, we're moving stuff from A to B, but ultimately we want our customer to succeed in their competitive environment so they can grow. If they grow, you grow. So we need to now start pulling our heads away from what we do that's already established, right? Booking a container from Shanghai to Sydney is exactly that. We need to start pulling our heads into our customers' area now and really go into a consultative approach and say, hey, this is your product, these are your lanes. Do you have visibility to how your product is selling? And we're really focusing on the SMEs now. And I can assure you, most of the SMEs probably don't. A lot of them are still working on Excel spreadsheets, mishmash of different systems, trying to somehow give themselves the best chance of selling that mug or whatever it is that they're selling. As a freight forwarder, we need to change our mode of selling into their world and say, okay, we know we've got the shipping side covered. How can we now give you the tools so that you can operate better as a business to grow? So yes, there is some bleeding into as a freight forwarder, and there's a huge shifting and molding to what we are now. The days of a freight forwarder simply moving a shipment from A to B is fast running out because it's going to be automated out, right? We need to now become more entrenched with our customers to help them sell better with our logistics experience, and yes, which shipping line to use and all that sort of stuff. That is where I generally see the direction heading, and this is what we are planning ourselves to be. And I can talk about this on and on.
No, but it's interesting. So, but even, and again, I'm probably interviewing you more than me, but I'm very interested in all of this. So, to talk about the future and the tech, and I'm even impressed that, we've got this set up here today and the whole social media, which has just blown me away. I'm a bit jealous, actually. I would like to have this as a part of FTA. But where do you go with the tech? Is that something that you plan to develop in-house, or do you, again, source that from third parties, or a bit of a mix?
We develop all our tech in-house.
Right.
We do not believe in outsourcing, purely because, not that there isn't great product on the marketplace. Like you saw in your recent webinar, there's some great people doing some great things out there. And if you're really clever, you can leverage these things very well, and you're going to make a huge difference to your customer. Okay, and putting the customer really at the, so as the holy grail here. But we feel that if you really want to push a vision forward where things are plain to see, relying on third parties will satisfy now, but it will not future-proof if your vision and direction is clear enough and you know exactly where you want to go. So we get people from external developers come up to us all the time, outsource to here, outsource to Ukraine, outsource to India, outsource to Philippines. We've always said no, because these folks, are tech company trying to build for industry. And that has never really gelled too well, right? We are now an industry company trying to build tech for the industry. And this is the subtle nuance that we like to see, and we will persist. And it's hard yakka, because with borders being shut, talent isn't available. You've got big guys like Wise Tech of the world sucking up all the talent. Well, not even then. Look at the YouTube, Facebook. If you're a coder, it's just code. Whether you code for this guy, same thing. And most of them want to go towards the fancier brands. And it's been hard yakka to find people to develop for an industry, like you said, no one knows about. I read an article the other day, even the Facebook, YouTube and the Googles of the world, they are losing their top talent in tech developing to all the cryptocurrency projects. And it makes total sense. Now, if you're a coding nerd, you're like, geez, crypto, this is the frontier. You will naturally go towards there. So all of these people, they will even shun Google to go to crypto. God, what do we have a chance in logistics? So it is hard yakka. But again, I like to think our vision is very, very clear. That's why we persisted. It's a bit slow moving, but what else are we going to do? This is, my favorite thing to do. So yes, so we are a bit slow moving, but it's happening. Everything is done in house, and like I said, I still feel that there's a huge opportunity in the industry, and it has to start from the grassroots. And through your advocacy, through going into high schools and telling these kids, just educate them a bit more about it. That's going to make the industry sustain itself a bit longer before everything takes off. If we get more smarter talent coming in here, they can probably fend and defend the industry better against the inevitable whitewash of tech. They could come up with different ingenious ways of how we can pivot and shift. Because you're still talking to someone who's been in this game for a long time, so I've got sort of blinkers on, and I don't have that external vision that these young folks can bring to the game. So it's chicken or the egg. It's chicken egg. So this is why, like, again, Paul, this is my favorite subject to talk about.
Sure.
I love this industry, and your advocacy is really what, I feel has to be fundamental to, and it fits in like a beautiful Tetris game.
Yeah.
It has everything fitting together.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the current, the tertiary educational / syllabus for supply chain professionals?
Yeah, look, it's, we've had the traditional area which we talked about has been the licensed customs broker. So we've got a diploma situation for them.
Yeah.
There is a diploma for international freight forwarding.
Yes.
But again, unfortunately, the mindset, I think, in Australia as compared to other parts of the world, again, it comes down to this whole professionalism.
Yeah.
So people do the diploma in customs broking because they want to get a customs broker license.
That's right.
So they can get the salary that comes with it
That's
and the other work. The freight forwarding diploma hasn't had the same type of uptake because it's not got that same regard as what it has in other parts of the world. Coming back to what attracted you to the industry, the advertisement to travel the world, the freight forwarding diploma should be of interest to young people because it potentially is their ticket to work in freight forwarding in other parts of the world. They could say, yes, we've worked here in Australia and I've used this software product and I've done this and that, but unless they've got that bit of paper behind them and the discipline that goes with it, we're probably lacking a bit there. But I think, again, we're talking to providers and looking at the concept of from school through to these diploma qualifications that exist now, through to higher education again.
Yeah.
And you mentioned WiseTech before too. I know we've had some personal dealings with Richard White from WiseTech. He's passionate about training, whether it's training in the tech area, but it's also where he's a very wealthy man and he's committed a lot of his personal funds to training in this area.
Yeah.
But he's also doing it in the industry too. He's commenced now and developed put together a team to do the WiseTech Academy, which is doing all the compliance stuff around DGs and all of that, but also doing the customs brokers diploma, the freight forwarding diploma, and will ultimately look to have that interface with universities.
Yes.
Now, ideally, you're going to get other training institutions as well look at that, compete with that, and like with anything, competition is what really drives
innovation.
The best.
Yeah.
And we need competition in that space. But
That's right.
to the credit of the WiseTech and the Academy, they're taking a lead in that space.
Right.
And we're working quite closely with them on a lot of different initiatives. And the big bonus that they've got too is that they've got a bit more wealth than FTA to perhaps drive some of these things.
Yeah, well, I remember when WiseTech was a much smaller company when I first joined the industry in the late 90s. And I recall back then they were a lot more collaborative because they were getting the smarts. They used to send teams into the freight forwarding operations department. And I remember there used to be a WiseTech person. They used to sit next to the operator, literally writing down pen and paper, what you like, what you don't like, what would you like to see, back when they were still trying to carve up, and understanding of what it is, how things should function, So I've definitely seen them sort of, go from where they were to now, which is a huge success story for an Australian tech company. And it's things like that that inspires me, because this is where we need to be, but it needs to still come from not just in the tech area, but from every area. You're not going to develop good tech if you're not passionate about logistics. How do we inject that passion into logistics?
Look, like you said, it might be the paradigm. As the industry changes, and like you said, it moves away from glorified data entry to the need to bring in smart people who are given the opportunity to innovate and to come to you and go, why are we doing this? Why don't we do that? And I think, but that will, and again, maybe that's where the smaller forwarding companies have that ability to pivot, as you said, and actually be innovative rather than just being a factory. And churning out the work. So look, let's face it, the industry hasn't changed that much in my time.
Yes.
So if I think back to the early 1980s, the only difference is things were a bit more manual.
Yes.
But we still had manifests, we still had airway bills, we still had, and we still reported to customs, and it hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is it's done electronically now. Maybe as you said, maybe the next 10 years is when we really see change. Not just doing the same thing the same way, but on going from paper-based systems to electronic systems to a bit smarter electronic systems. Maybe the next 10 years is where we don't just redo, but we re-engineer.
That's right. That's right.
So it'll be fascinating. And it'll be fascinating, I think, to see who survives that change and who prospers in that change. And look, it's something I look at even with our own Freight and Trade Alliance. We've got now about 360 freight forwarders as members of FTA. Yeah. How many will be there in 10 years' time? You know, will some
that
disappear?
Depends how many will continue to join you. Because that will keep it robust, so you can advocate more, so they can remain sustainable and survive.
Well, let's hope so. We can create the platform, but it needs, again, like entities like yourselves and others who can, you know, grasp the challenges, but have the foresight and deal with the enormous challenges that are no doubt going to hit. But just grow with that and provide that difference.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, how many will survive will depending on how many of them are truly in it for the essence of logistics, or are just in it because once were a salesperson, have a book of customers he's drawing his income from, and he's happy with that. Versus the die-hard logistics, like, you know, we want to change the world. I think that ultimately will be the separating point. You know, and I've spoken to a few folks in my time about, you know, exactly wanting to advocate more for the industry, and each and every time, most if not all of them have always said, yes, when we first started we had the same vision, but then I got married and had kids.
Well, that's your success.
Yeah, that's true.
You're still looking for that perfect woman to come into your life.
That's true. My woman is, you know, this industry, and I'm perfectly happy and perfectly fine, because, you know, for you know, okay, this is going to be true confession now. For probably 15 years of my career, I would dare say, I was a salesperson from dot one, and I sold large and small and controlled a significant amount of business. For 15 of those years, I didn't have a clue how anything worked. Not a single clue. My entire sales pitch wasn't based on any training, was literally Frankenstein of a sales pitch from this company to that company and trying to mesh it together. And I would dare say there's a lot of my ex-sales colleagues that are exactly the same. And when you have that environment, let's call us cowboys, selling to the market, it takes away from the experience of being a professional, because people won't view you as a professional anymore. So it's the latter part of my career in this industry, which then I thought to myself, well, you know, we've got to stop the bullshit. The bullshit needs to stop. Let's just actually take a bit of time and study, read, understand, so that you can, you know, if you can't beat it, join them type of, you know, thing. So I'm a reluctant, passionate logistics person, but I'm happy I am in it now. But I don't want anyone to go through my experience, you know, because it is, for a good part of it, demoralizing, you know, where you felt you've contributed nothing to the world other than BS. So there's my confession for this show.
Oh, well, we've got a title for the episode, Stopping the BS.
So I think we've touched on every point, Paul. But, you know, I think what I would like to definitely say, you know, aside from the show, the content, but this is the subject, with or without the microphone, this is exactly the same thing. There is no show here because this is my life. This is my career. there is no way out.
Yeah.
This is, literally survive or die.
Yeah.
So, I will do whatever it takes to try to promote this industry. I mean, we started from many years ago when we had these interns coming in, and they all, because why it's late for university, we had these interns coming, they're already studying to be something else. But we still included him and put him in different roles is because we want them to see and experience logistics in an environment that isn't what they would imagine in a warehouse or something. Show them that it can be a lovely environment to work in. Show them that things doesn't have to be laborious and tedious. It's actually fun, and you can be part of. We can be like the best of them, right? And that then we send them back out in the world. And I'm quite happy to say is that a few of the interns we had from Europe did come back to us, and they've actually either joined on the trade, our customer side become buyers, for company dealing in logistics,
Sure.
or have actually joined the logistics industry.
Yeah.
So, through little things like this, but we are just one voice, we're just one entity doing it. And if the rest of our industry colleagues can hear this, I would encourage everybody to do that, because for too long, our industry had been worried about self-interest.
Yeah.
It's how to make that buck and how to take someone else's client or container or air freight. We get that. That's competition, that's commercial. But every now and then, there needs to come together as a cohesive voice, be it through FTA's voice and advocacy. Because it's only through the survival of the industry can each one of us survive within it.
Yeah.
And this self-interest, it's me or you type of mentality cannot be a constant.
Yeah.
We need to put the guns down, for lack of a better analogy, and actually just come together and talk about how are we going to make ourselves more attractive to the young guys that's in high school, that wants to come in and study for the industry.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time we're going to have any significant, meaningful change. Without it, we're spitting in the wind.
Well, La, you're inspirational, highly motivational. I feel like we need the Rocky theme running in the background now. I think I might put on the sweater and run home. Look, it's been great talking to you, and it's given me a bit of a pep to again encourage to do what we keep doing.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can collectively make a difference going forward.
Absolutely, and and if it's one parting comment and one comment that I would sincerely like to make, Paul, and also to our audience and listeners, is that join FTA. And it's not a shameless plug, but one that I see value from my perspective. My biggest qualm, like I said at the beginning of this show, has that there has not been enough industry bodies that has been hardworking and been advocating for our industry, right? Fighting for the rights of our truckers, fighting for the rights for the freight forwarders, against all of the anti-competitive actions being taken by various bodies purely because they're large enough to do so, and also to be putting our industry in the front of the ministers that are relevant to our industry. Without our contribution towards FPA and its membership, this won't happen. So we need to make sure it sustains and continues the momentum, because it's only through this level of advocacy can we be understood by more people and be appreciated and make a difference. So on that note, if you haven't joined FTA, please join FTA.
No, thanks. I might need a clip of that. Might put that on our website. Thanks again.
I'll make a TikTok for you.
Thank you so much again as our first guest, and dare I say it, what a brilliant a pleasure to have you as our first guest. It's an absolute privilege.
Thanks, Lara. Again, appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you kindly, Paul.
Okay. See you.
Thanks, guys. Well, thanks for watching and listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram as well at TGL_global. You can also get links to socials and website of FTA through the description, so feel free to check that out as well. See you later.